Welcome to another episode of AutisHim, Black Fathers and Autism. My name is Ty, one of the hosts. I got my brothers next to me, Lonnie, Nick, Trav. Hey, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and tune in to future episodes. Right now, we got a real special one for you, ladies and gentlemen. So I learned about this group through one of our previous guests by the name of Derek Roberts. Check out that episode. Shout out to Derek. Derek, if you're listening, hope you're doing great things, my brother. And so, Derek, I think somebody on the pod asked about, we asked about black men being in the space of ABA. And Derek was like, no, we are definitely present in this space, and talked about the organization that he's a part of. So I looked up this organization and I'm like, dang, they doing some real big things out here, man. So the name of the organization is BMBA, Black Men in Behavioral Analysis. We got two individuals that are part of that. One of them is the CEO and president of the BMBA. We got our two guests. Give it up for them. We got Jeron Trotman and Darius Cooper. Give it up for them. Give them a round of applause. But Jeron Trotman and Darius Cooper, everybody. All right. Yo, thanks for coming on, fellas. Really appreciate you for being here. So listen, man, I just want to jump right into it. So I want you to just, whoever want to go first, can you share your journey into the field of applied behavioral analysis and like what inspired you to pursue this path?
About 15 years now. As you said, I'm also the founder of Black Men in Behavioral Analysis. That's just a really dynamic community created to amplify the voices of black men working in the field and our experiences. More importantly, I believe in the power of presence. So I love what you brothers are doing, when it's coming to fatherhood, advocacy, raising black children on the spectrum. My work as a clinician is different from you guys' experience. So I'm here to also learn from you guys. In terms of my journey, so I was a Division I basketball player, University of New Hampshire, had no idea what ABA was. But my coach's wife knew some school, and she said I should go check it out. And I ended up doing an internship and shadowing some BCBAs, and I really fell in love with the field from there in the science. ABA is a field where it's not like doctors and lawyers and nurses. We all just kind of fall into the field. That's just what it is, and that's how I found my journey. I ended up going to grad school after that and becoming a board certified behavior analyst, and it's really been ever since then. And I really just, one of my goals is really just helping people feel seen, heard, supported, helping individuals find their voices, advocating with families. And so I've been in this space, and I'll be in this space another 15, 20 years because I really enjoy the work that I do.
Coop, same question for you, man. Like, what's your journey and getting to the ABA field, man? How did you discover that, and what drove you to it?
So I'm Coop. I'm from New York. I've been out here for about 3 years now in the Atlanta area. I originally started in a group home setting. That's where I originally got introduced to autism, working with troubled youth, and I wasn't really aware. It was in my family, but growing up for me, it was more of like not really spoken about, and people didn't really want to have that autism label. So we had the family members that had signs, and now 20 years later, it's like, hey, I'm on the spectrum. But back then it was like, oh, just be nicer to him, or just don't yell at her like that. So I had an idea about it, but when I was working in the group home setting, we had a client who just had different behaviors. He would go see a therapist, and he had a treatment plan. And then that's where I found out about what the autism diagnosis was, and then how there were ways to work on certain behaviors and do certain things. Fast forward, I ended up moving out to Georgia, and I kind of wanted to stay in the field of just children and neurodiversity. So I ended up working at a clinic, Hope Ridge, out here as a registered behavior technician. I worked for about 3 or 4 different companies before I went and started my own ABA company. So I own my own ABA company out here in the Georgia area. We service Jonesboro, Atlanta, mostly the South Side. And that's been going really well. And then I also just started a ABA tech company. So that's also been going well. And then Jeron and I have a ABA company together. So my main goal is to just connect with the community, connect with brothers like you guys, get on these kind of calls. We have the podcast to give a voice and just start having more of these kind of conversations kind of thing.
Hey, that's awesome to hear, man. So my next question, and I want the fellas to get in here as well. what unique challenges have you encountered as a Black man in the ABA space? Because, you know, clearly you guys have the things that you're doing, and I don't want to speak for my brothers, but, you know, my son was in ABA, and I'm just being honest, it wasn't a lot of people that look like me. So what challenges do you think you face as a Black man in the space of ABA?
Yeah, you know, one of the reasons why BMBA was founded was because of kind of what you said, Brother Ty. Wasn't a lot of men that looked like me when I was coming up. Then mentorship didn't come until about 7 or 8 years later down the line. So I had experience with a lot of white women who were middle-aged white women who were supervisors, and they did a phenomenal job of teaching me the science. So from a cultural standpoint, from the microaggressions to the racism to discrimination, all of those things they could not relate to. So, you know, I really had those experiences coming up and didn't really have a lot of help. So for me, some challenges that I really faced was really being able to have somebody I can go and talk to and say, hey, you know, this is what I've been going through. Have you gone through it? You know, if I went through my supervisor, she hadn't been through things like that. So, you know, you got to be twice as good oftentimes in our field as well, just because you're a Black man. You know, you go into certain schools or places and people don't think you're a behavior analyst. They think you are just maybe the paraprofessional that's not with the BCBA, you know, just because of that stereotype. So there's a lot of challenges that come with it. You know, you gotta, in my opinion, you know, for me, it was a journey of being able to say, okay, I see this, I see what's going on. How can I make an impact? And I change for people who are coming up like me. So those challenges that I'm facing, I want to be able to say, like, little, you know, younger Jeron doesn't have to face those. And that's, again, why we created BMBA, because of those challenges that I just mentioned.
Cool.
And
What
Cooper's
challenges?
a little bit different because he's a owner of an ABA company. So I'm sure you can kind of give him a little bit different perspective from that, Cooper.
So I would say from the therapy side, it's rough. So the reason I started my company was because it was so much of a disconnect, and I'm like, why am I working with so many kids who look like me, but the people who have a say in these kids who look like me don't look like me? You know, like the people who are the owners of these companies, you know, they don't even really understand the culture, like either whether it's a BCBA or certain things. I felt like there was just a major disconnect from ABA and ownership. You know, it's a thing where you can make a lot of money. It is a, you know, PE backed thing. But I also felt like a lot of stuff needed to change as far as a Black man and as Black people in the ABA field. Even as far as connecting with the parents, you know, as a RBT, I would always get sent to the roughest client, the most physical client, which that's kind of what my company is based around, because my whole thing is that those kids do need treatment too. And, you know, I try to build a team of, you know, Black men, because the thing is we are more equipped usually sometimes to handle that stuff, even though what it comes with it. But I felt that, you know, it's a lot that, and I don't want to get canceled because I do got a podcast now, so I can't say too much. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it's as a brother in ABA, speaking for myself, I'm working hard so that we really have a voice at certain tables. And
I like that.
that's what
I
I'll say.
like that a lot, man. If you don't mind me asking, Coop, so you said something earlier that really hit home with me. So I'm a 90s baby. Growing up, you know, back then things were a bit different, you know, considering how we raised children. And you mentioned how we may have, you know, family members or friends that had children that may have, you know, acted a bit different from what we consider normal. And like you said, back then, everybody just kind of brushed it off. Oh, they just, you know, got some behaviors. But now we're in the space, you know, almost 20, 30 years later, where we're getting a lot of, you know, diagnosis, which is great. Yeah. So we're stepping in the right direction. But my question to you is, for those young families that may have been in our shoes before, but are a bit scared of labels or just don't know where to start, what is your advice to them that you can give them to get started and just kind of look past those stereotypes?
So, I mean, I feel like my clear cut advice is you have to do it. Like, you're gonna hurt your child more by not doing it than doing it. You know, at the end of the day, there's a lot of autism is now science backed, and I do understand the other part of it, because having a company, right? I have a lot of families where the fathers are not in acceptance. I have families where the mothers are getting ABA and haven't even told the fathers that the child is on the spectrum because they don't know how they're going to take it. They don't know how his family is going to take it. So I do see that side of it, right? But then I also see the side that, you know, depending on your experience, depending on the company, ABA works, you know, and to autism is such a wide spectrum that if you ignore your child, that spectrum, you're ignoring a lot. So to even try to just, you know, accept it and we work on whether it be eating, whether it be in communication, whether it be behaviors, whether it be emotional regulation, if you choose to ignore that, you know, to go get that diagnosis, you're ignoring a lot of stuff that's going to affect that child down the line. So my advice is, as much as it may hurt, do the very uncomfortable thing if it is uncomfortable and just go get it done and get that test done.
Yeah, I second that heavily.
Coop, because, you know, we don't also talk about enough, like when we do get that diagnosis. When you do first get that diagnosis, it's for a lot of fathers I talk to, and you brothers can probably speak, so it's hard. You know, so my advice would be when you get that, just breathe. Like, you know, you didn't do anything wrong. Like, your child's not broken or anything like that. There's a lot to learn, yes, but you don't have to do it alone. You know, my recommendation is find community. Like, you brothers have found community right here where you can share experiences. Like, find that community that reminds you, you know, that, you know, you still belong. There's a lot of great things that you can still do, but find that community. Everything's going to be okay. It may not always be easy, but everything's going to be okay.
Hey,
So
I just want to. So go ahead, Cool. Go ahead.
I want to ask, right? And we could do it briefly. You know, as forefathers with children on the spectrum, what was that like for you guys?
Yeah. So let me go, because I was just about to comment on that. What Jeron was talking about. So it's not something I'm proud of, but it's the truth, right? I got to be transparent. And so when my son was first diagnosed, I went through all the emotion. I went through denial. I went through anger. I went through frustration. I was stressed. I questioned my faith. I went through it all. I felt like hearing that diagnosis and not fully understanding what it was, I just automatically went to the most negative place I could go to. And so I think for myself, and we've talked about this on our podcast, right? When you have a child, especially when you have a son, being a father, right? You want your child, if not to be the exact same person you are, you want them to be very, very similar to you. So like Jeron, like I know Jeron plays sports, right? I played sports growing up. Like I was a hooper, right? So my son, in my mind, I'm like, my son's going to hoop. He's going to be a basketball player. No doubt in my mind. And then when you hear the diagnosis, you're like, oh man, like that probably is not going to happen. Doesn't mean it won't happen. It just looks different, right? So I went through everything, and my wife was the complete opposite. She was like, okay, we got to get down to business. We got to do this. We got to do that. And I was the one that was stagnant. Like I had my hands up, like, I don't know what to do. So yeah, man, when I first found out, I went through all the emotion, and it took me a while to like accept that this is a part of my son. It doesn't fully define who he is, but this is a part of him. And so, yeah, I went through all the ups and downs, man.
So before I answer your question, I want to touch back on what Trav said. For anybody who's watching this podcast, one of the things you can do is watch the episodes of this podcast. For the fathers that are out there who, or the spouses or mothers of children, and you haven't told the father about autism, watch this podcast. Maybe there's something that we've said that could help, or have them watch it themselves. To answer your question, and like Ty said, we've talked about this a couple of times. Even before you have your child, once you find out that the mother of your child is pregnant, you have a vision. You have a preconceived vision of what your child is going to be. And then you find out the gender. He's a boy, he's a girl. Your vision then starts to develop even more. And you have this start. So 9 months, a year in, you've created a vision of what you thought your family was going to look like. And oftentimes you don't consider your family being one that's going to have a neurodivergent child in it. So that doesn't come across your mind when your wife or your baby moms or whatever the situation may be is pregnant. And so you're thinking, like Ty said, my son's going to be a hooper. My son's going to be a football player. My son is going to be the doctor. My daughter's going to be a lawyer, whatever the case may be. And it's the change of vision and it's the shift when you find out the child has a diagnosis that is difficult for a lot of people. In my case, I'm Mr. Fix-It. I went through that process. My wife is a social worker, and she helped me understand that, it wasn't a thing to get angry or mad about, but I am a fix-it guy. So it's like, okay, so what do we need to do? Who do we need to call? What is the next steps? And because my wife has experience in the DSM-5 with her work, et cetera, she was able to help quarterback the situation. And then I was able to get on board with her direction because somebody had to be and give direction. And due to her knowledge base, she took the lead. But we started to call and we got, doctors involved, et cetera. But that was just the beginning of the journey. And that is the one thing I definitely want people to realize is finding out your diagnosis is just the start. Then you have to put your hard hat, your boots, and pack your lunch because the work still needs to take place. And that's the kind of the mindset that I had going into my situation. I'll pass it over to the fellas so they can answer.
Go ahead, Lonnie.
It took me a while to even be able to say autism. It took me a while to acknowledge some of the challenge my son was having. And it was odd because he was getting tested, getting evaluated and whatnot. And they always focused on the negatives of what he couldn't do. Well, he had splinter skills, things he was great at. And I was always, what about this? What about even today? You know what I mean? Like, there are things he does really, really well, right? And I kept focusing on those things where I couldn't even talk about the negative or I hate the term deficit, but his challenges, right? And so it took me a while before I could say I have an autistic son, even though I went back to school to get a special ed degree to be able to work with him. You know what I mean? And so it took me some time because I grew up in a family, a massive family with a bunch of eccentric folks, special folks, people who were different because we were always kind of out there. And so over time, I can see patterns in my own family. It's like if it was 30 years ago today, we'd have more different diagnoses. You know what I mean? And so it took me a while to come around to it because I was, I won't say embarrassed, but there was like, man, I think what a lot of the fathers are dealing with, there are so many other challenges being a Black man. Why my kid got to deal with this other thing? And so I think some of it is not wanting to have that other challenge or burden on their kids. And so I'm finally at a place where, it is what it is. He's doing great. All the supports he needs and whatnot. And he's just growing and developing. And even today, he is not recognizable from where he was, a couple years ago. He's just growing, continuing to develop. And so you said it earlier, the importance of getting support early and often. I can't, just reiterate that enough. It's important to get past the denial, get past the acceptance, and get your kid the support they need as soon as possible.
Yeah, and similar sentiments to everybody in this group here. I'll even speak to the point of where it tested my marriage. When my son got diagnosed, it was a dark period for me and my wife where, we didn't necessarily agree on things. It tested us to the point where we didn't know if this was going to make or break us. But luckily, just like the other fellas on this meeting here today, I had a wife who's very resilient. She's like, hey, look, this isn't the result we wanted, but we have to figure out and do what's best. So she was able to find the resources, help me find groups. And I had to also kind of realize, okay, how am I going to be better? How am I going to overcome this adversity? So therefore, I started doing research myself. And now, I'm 7 years, I'm married. My son's going on 9. And I say we're better than ever. And it's a continued growth. Most of our children are pretty much either preteen or going to be teenagers. So this is really going to be a period in which we're going to be tested. But I definitely say it was worth the journey.
I do have a question for Coop and Jeron. We talk about, fixing our children, or society says children that are on the spectrum, those are the ones who need, services and assistance and accommodation and support. But how can we start to look at not just our children, but shaping society to understand that our children are different and helping other children who may be neurotypical develop more grace so that there's a space for not just neurodivergent children in autism, but neurodivergent children in other areas with other diagnoses?
Want me to take that, Cooper? You got it.
I'll just go first. I did see the clip, but I'll let you go.
Okay. Man, that's a good one. First of all, I want to say we talk a lot about therapy, but not enough about fatherhood. I think the father's presence is consistent presence is the biggest intervention you actually can have over ABA, over anything. That's why building a brotherhood like you guys have now is important. Knowing the history, like the history of our country and all that, there's a lot of Black families that have valid reasons to be cautious over systems, over diagnosis, over those things. You guys all know the history dating back from like Tuskegee experiment, like all the stuff that we've done where we have valid reason to be cautious, right? But I believe like the way, first of all, we have to repair that harm that's done. And I think that's done by centering our culture, our values, our truths, and how we serve. And that includes giving fathers a seat at the table, which a lot of fathers don't have. And, the stigma that you talked about, bro, Nick, you kind of said it earlier. It starts with having conversations like this. It starts with being valid and actually seeing people have these conversations and talk about it and talk about what it looks like, talk about what it isn't. Because if people like us aren't talking about it, everybody's going to continue to have form all these opinions. But if you have AutisHim, if you have Beyond the Science, if you have BMBA, continue to talk about how to, and then tell you guys what the actual truth is, our community can then be educated. So awareness is huge. Being able to push stuff like that out here is huge. And I have to really kind of embrace that, because sometimes when I first started out, I was kind of nervous to talk about certain things, and, neurodivergence and autism in our community, it's kind of one of those touchy subjects, because I grew up in the South, right? So what I mean by that is, for our listeners who are listening, you get your ass beat if you just messing around, right? You showing out, right? We're just going to give them a stick or something like that. And that's, what people say, oh, he just acting out. Our community is not really educated enough about what neurodivergence is. So being educated enough to know what's going on and what ABAs and other interventions like SLPs and OTs can do is super important. I can't really stress that enough. So our community continue to have these conversations and educate each other. Again, like podcasts like this, conversations like this, I think is imperative to that conversation.
Like, this isn't 20 years ago and autism is okay. Like, it has to now be a thing that, even how I remember it, right, was like the children who were neurodiverse, it was like 6 of them in a class. They stayed in that one class all day. You kind of knew who they were, and they did their own thing, and they went to lunch at a different time a little bit, and it was kind of like he was cool with some of them, but, like, it doesn't have to be like that anymore. Like, autism is shown in so many different ways, and so many, everybody could probably almost have a little bit of neurodiversity, So I feel like if we make it more of a thing of like, hey, neurodiversity is a thing in the classroom at first grade, second grade, third grade. Your friend, Jimmy, like, he has autism. He's on the spectrum. So, the way that you might say something to Mike, just think about it a little more when we were talking to Jimmy, because he doesn't regulate, conversation and behaviors the same way. So even just having that little conversation throughout the day with the students and acknowledging and maybe giving little tips, that could help as far as that kid in the community thing, I would say.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about negative stuff in the autism community, some of the challenges, a lot of the exchanges between law enforcement and folks on the spectrum, especially folks of color. But what is something positive right now, or you think going in the right direction in terms of autism community or ABA? What are some good things you see in the pipeline right now?
So I'll speak for myself. The app that we're building out right now, the point of it is to connect families with like police departments, fire departments. The goal is like for parents. So we have a parent portal. You can upload, a simple maybe IEP or just a background of your kiddo, a quick intervention, and then it's aligned with like a chat GBT or a chat bot that if you gave a call and you had an emergency, the precinct, your local precinct is also a part of, it's called Sapphire, was also a part of Sapphire. We go out. So when they come through, if your kiddo's in that app, they can sign in really quick. They'll see a quick like, hey, this is so and so. They're not good with loud sounds. They may elope. They may show, a slight aggression, but it doesn't go too far. Try using this before you even get to the door. So that's something that me and my team have been very intentional about building, and is going in the right direction. And hopefully we can make it on the scale it needs to be on, kind of thing.
Yeah. I've heard so many just positive and negative stories about ABA. And I'm one of those proponents of ABA because for me, when ABA is done, when it's done right, it works. It uplifts families. It provides autonomy. But there are some, just like there's bad doctors out there, there's bad ABA out there as well. So I would love to speak on some positives to your point, Lonnie, that we're seeing. I think the ABA community is really, like Coop, you kind of mentioned this too, embracing that neurodiversity, but really embracing cultural responsiveness. That's something that we really didn't look at before. We had all these studies going out, but now we're actually looking at culture and how culture also impacts the way we do ABA. And I think particularly with our community, that's super important. We're having these advancements, and I know you guys know AI is huge right now, and it's enabled us to be able to treat and collect data and bring access to so many other people in the ABA space at a much higher clip. I mean, I probably use it every day, and it improves a lot of the treatments and a lot of things that I do as well. And then we're seeing a lot of policy changes as well. We're seeing policy changes. We're seeing early intervention happen more and more now, especially in our community, which is amazing. Even 10 years ago, you weren't seeing a lot of particularly Black families getting early intervention. It was kind of happening later and later. But I think Lonnie mentioned this. We may have mentioned, like, sooner you can get it, the better. So I'm seeing that in the ABA space as well. And I'm just seeing more collaboration, which is really good. I'm seeing more collaboration among professionals, the speech, the OT, the ABAs, and you got to have that collaboration. If everybody's doing their own thing, it's going to look a lot different. So I'm starting to see that collaborative approach, and I'm really happy to see that our ABAs, especially professionals, is a big part of that. So got some exciting changes going on. Again, even from just a decade ago, and I'm happy to be a part of the field that's kind of changing. And again, when it's done right, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Coop, I apologize if I missed this, but I just want to ask a clarification question about the app that you and your team are building. Is that going to be starting off like locally? Is it countrywide? Like, how is that, starting off, I guess?
So the goal is to invest and make it as big as we can. You can only really do what you have the bandwidth with the team for, but I think that is something that's needed. And it's just a thing of reaching out. It's a thing of reaching out and having something that makes sense. So even where you guys are located, if you have a local, police department or fire department, send us a zip code. We have somebody from the team that just reaches out, and it's like, hey, it's a very simple thing. Just download this app, and then we go to the precinct. We give them like a little sticker, a badge, just say like, So I have a son named Ocean. So the assistant inside of the software is named after my son, Ocean. So the marketing isn't behind it is like, now you're in the ocean. So once everybody, signs up with the app and the families, now it's a community, because the ultimate goal is, and this is, I don't really know too much about this. We're on a podcast talking about it, but the ultimate goal is to have like a Facebook kind of vibe in the app, so that families can connect. And it's a thing of that, like, we're being intentional about creating a community around it.
Thanks for clarifying that, man. I definitely want to talk to you about that later offline because it's a great idea. First of all, your son got a dope ass name, so that's dope.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. The next question I have is all the fellas on the call, we've been a part of many different parent trainings and, you know, things of that nature. And so when we are part of those calls, we're seeing way more women on those calls, right? Black women, which is great. Like, that's great because, you know, moms is going to be involved. But it's very, very low attendance for men in those spaces, especially Black men. There's studies show that millennial like fathers are more involved in their kids' lives. But I wanted to ask you, with the work that you guys are doing with the BMBA and, you know, the app and all the things you have going in that space, are you seeing a shift of more Black men being involved? Like, what is that looking like on you guys' end?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Coop. You know, I think that's one of the things I'm most proud of with BMBA is not just with practitioners, but I feel like a lot of our presence is, you know, liberating a lot of other Black men to be more involved, especially my Black fathers, and that means everything. You know, we're having our first in-person summit. It's in Atlanta this year. And at that summit, you're going to see a plethora of Black men speaking on their experiences, whether it's parent training, behavior supports, you name it, we'll have it there. And, you know, I do want to quickly speak to my fathers who aren't involved because I feel like it's my duty to speak to them. You know, you can never underestimate the power of just being there. Like, you really can't. You don't need to be a therapist. You don't have to be a specialist. Like, I can't tell you. I have so many. We don't have enough time. I have so many stories to just kind of talk about this. You don't have to have all the right words, but like your presence as a father, your love, your consistency, your questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. By the way, that's one of the most powerful things that you can do for your kids. And when I talk to my fathers who maybe are kind of hesitant, you know, black fatherhood especially is often misrepresented or I would say erased. But the truth is, when we show up in rooms, we change. We shift the energy. We change the room when we show up. And I'm sure y'all brothers know because y'all been here. When we're at school meetings, when we're in therapy sessions, when we're in those community spaces, it shifts how people look at our children, our kids. So I'm just gonna give a quick shout out to the fathers who may be on the edge of their seat and maybe not wanting to or maybe frustrated. Don't sit it out. Don't sit this one out. Join the conversation, join the community. You know, whether it's coming on a podcast like this, AutisHim, or going to an IEP meeting, going to the summit, you know, your voice really does matter. You know, when I'm in these rooms when it's just me and the mom talking, I know the father present, I don't judge or anything like that. We all have our stuff that we're going to. It's so much more meaningful when the father's there. So you're not alone. People who are listening right now, we need our Black fathers to know that you do not have to be perfect to be powerful. And I'm gonna say that again. You don't have to be perfect to be powerful. So I just want to give a shout out to everybody who's on the edge. You just gotta be present. So I'm always encouraging fathers to be present. Even if you just show up in a room, you don't say anything. Just be present, and you'll see the difference that can make in intervention in your kid's life and everything.
I will say this: if you are having a summit and you need a Black Fathers panel, I know these three guys on this call have been on fathers panels before.
I was gonna wait, brother Nick. I was gonna wait to the end, but I do have a surprise invite for you guys. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Oh,
but
okay.
These three guys have definitely been on a fathers panel before, and the last fathers panel that they were on, they rocked it. So,
I love it. So I'm inviting
there's a lot
you guys.
A lot of good information between these three guys
last
over
presentation that we do have, and I'm inviting you guys. I got 3 spots available. We're having a powerful panel presentation on fatherhood, on parenthood in general. There's going to be a couple of people on this panel, but particularly recipients. That's why I asked you, bro, Ty, of ABA services, but just even a fatherhood individual, neurodivergent individual. We're doing a panel to speak about experiences, educate the community. So here live, I'm inviting you guys to come down to Atlanta, September 4th through 6th. That panel will be on September 5th from 2 to 3 p.m. You guys are invited. I would love to see as many of you brothers that can be there to speak on your experiences to our community, to educate us, but also build community with us as we continue this journey. So open invite to you brothers to join that panel. And I hope you guys can, get there.
Brother, I highly appreciate it. I thought you was gonna say it was in a couple weeks, and I was gonna be like, I can't make it. But with it being in September, we definitely can communicate. But man, thank you so much. I know I can't speak for everybody on the call. I know how they feel, man. They feel like me, just honored and appreciate you extending that invite, man. That's amazing what you guys are doing. I can't speak enough about it. And so with that being said, my last question, and I want to ask you both, is that we talk about the podcast. You guys have a podcast. You got the app going. What are some other things you think we can do as, us having a platform, you guys having a platform? You could even take it from an educational standpoint, K through 12, higher ed. What do you think we should be doing as a community to keep pushing the envelope and keep the conversation moving forward? Because we're talking about it, and talking is half the battle. But what are some other things you think we could be doing to kind of spread the message and get, basically put words into action?
So I'll answer. I think just, man, continue to be bold, man. Continue to, put it in people's face. I mean, the fact that even right now to have 6 brothers on the phone talking about autism, 4 fathers who have been able to connect. Shout out to our other, co-host Joe. He's actually hosting an event tonight for fathers in the community who have children with autism or, just neurodiverse children, where they get to meet up. And, I've been to his events where like men have broken down and cried, and, and to see that, the one thing with us as men, it's hard for us to be vulnerable in that space. And I think that it's okay, and I think the more men that you can get around, like, you could be tough and have your moment and do that. I think it's important. I think a lot of us don't even know about communities like this, don't know about your podcast, don't know about our podcast. And I think we have to continue to just be bold and be out there and be in people's face and, be like, hey, it's okay. And there's more of us. And the more that we can do that and stay consistent with it, the more I think we can make an impact on the community.
Yeah, good point, Scoop. And we can't just talk about it. We got to be about it as a community. That means normalizing conversations like we're having now. This shouldn't be some shocking conversation that we're having. Normalize these conversations. Show up in spaces that shape our kids' future. Build these support circles like you guys are building now, where fathers can be real and not be judged. We got to also demand better from these systems that support us as well. We got to continue to show up. Come to the summit. Come on podcasts like this. I'm a firm believer in Coop. This community does not grow if we stay silent. Never gonna grow. Never gonna grow. It grows when we decide that our voices, our kids, deserve to be front and center, and they do. So we can't just continue to talk about it. We gotta continue to build about it. We need to build more spaces like you guys have built. Kudos to you brothers that have built this space. We need more spaces. We also need to reach back and mentor another father, right? You may bring mentor somebody else who's coming in, drop some wisdom, give him some encouragement. Each one teaching one is going to help shift our culture. So let's continue not just talk about it, but continue to be about it as community and create spaces like this, where this is not, it's a normalized conversation that we're having right now about the things that we're doing in our community.
And I'll just piggyback off of that, whatever spaces you guys are in, go hard, because we still don't have a lot of say in what's going on for real. So whether it's IEPs, whether it's you guys are on school boards, whether it's ABA, whatever space you guys are in, make sure your voice is being heard and the right people are hearing them, kind of thing.
So I actually do have one last question, and I know we're running close on time, but you all had an opportunity to ask a question early, but I want to give you another opportunity. If there's one thing that each of us, you would like to know from each one of us, outside of, the question that you previously asked, what is it that you would like to ask us that we can answer in the time that we have left, that you may, that you either normally ask, fathers on the that have children on the spectrum or loved ones on the spectrum, or a question that you just thought to ask and never had an opportunity to ask. I want to give you all an opportunity to, give us something that, we could hopefully impart some information.
Yeah, cool. You got a question?
Yeah, question that you all may have for us.
Sure. I'll go. My biggest question, which I think I asked you guys, was dealing with the diagnosis. What was that like? And then I think the questions I would probably really want to ask probably be off camera. And, the other question is, how'd you deal with it? You know what I'm saying? So I'll ask, what was something that when you found out you learned about yourselves that you weren't aware of?
It's a good one. Who want to take a stab at it first?
I can take a stab at it. Go ahead, Lonnie.
I have I had two friends pass away in April, and I'm from a large family, and so I've been thinking a lot about, life and things that are important to me. And for me, I've always valued education. This is knowledge power, books, right? And so in my mind, that was my kids. I'm all about books, and so I had that mindset with this child who wasn't into books in the same way I was. And so I kept bumping heads against, come on, man, we doing this. I was like pushing him so hard academically. And then I just saw that all I was pouring on my son was disappointment. You know what I mean? I wasn't looking at what he was good at, what he was great at. Even today, he got up today. He played piano and violin, and he's like, "You proud of me?" And I've had to get away from that performance type thing that, I love you as good as you are. You know what I mean? Or you know what I mean? I was pushing him academically so hard when that isn't what it is now. For me, it was literally life and death. It was like, getting out of this environment or not. But we aren't in it anymore. You know what I mean? And so I've had to change my mindset about the value and importance of academic accomplishment. It's more, where can he be successful and where can he find joy on his own, with the goal towards how much autonomy and independence can this child have as he goes into becoming a young man. So my focus has shifted on, what I always thought it would be as far as books, college education, et cetera, more into how can this young man end up with a job or end up in a place where he's happy and he's satisfied. So
I like that. Definitely. For me, I think I found out that I value community and strong relationships more than I thought I ever would. I'm the type of father that's going to show up at the parent-teacher conference at the beginning of the year. If my schedule allows, I'm going to go meet my son's teachers, aides, anybody that assists him throughout the year, make sure they know my name. I am involved and they have my phone number. I've had plenty of situations where I've been in the office. I've, went to the side, talked to my son's teacher's aides, doing what I need to do to ensure that he's okay, talked him down a bit when he's having some rough moments. There were even points, when my son first started elementary where he eloped a lot. So he was known as the kid that would run around and elope. But, as a father, I would come up there and say, hey, yeah, I'm the father of the kid that elopes. What do you need from me to help him? So with that strong communication, I felt that, we built a lot of community in his current elementary. We're really strong with the teachers. My son's going to 4th grade now. We still have great relationships with his past teachers. So I feel that it's important that, I found myself in the past being a big person that does a lot of stuff by myself. I could be a loner at times, but you have to be willing to work with others that have your best interest at heart. So I think as long as you're willing to kind of jump out there, be a bit vulnerable, but more so for the benefit of your children, that'll bring you some great results in the end.
I like that.
2 quick things. First thing I learned was the school systems aren't as equipped as they would like to say. I'll put it on record.
That's a bar right there.
They think they're equipped, but they're not. You're talking to a father who averages 4 IEPs a year. I tell all parents,
Mhm.
you'll hear it on the podcast. I think every parent should have at least 4 IEPs a year. One at the beginning of the year, and then one every quarter to give your child an opportunity to see the goals, and if the goals aren't being met, to make the changes. 2, I had to realize that discipline looks different. I cannot discipline my child the way I was disciplined. And so I had to learn, and I'm still learning new disciplinary skills in order to make sure my son is not afraid of me, but he loves me, that he doesn't fear the things that he loves. And so we have more conversation. There's a lot more breathing inside of my household between myself and my son to be able to calm ourselves before we do things. So I try to instill that in my child since he was, knee high to a footstool. But if I had to say 2 things, it would be those: that school systems need to be more equipped, and that discipline definitely looks different to a neurodivergent child because they will show you what you showed them.
All right, brother Todd, how much time we got? 'Cause I do
No,
have a
we
question.
we good. We good on time. Nick took mine, but I'm gonna spend it a different way. I got 2. The first one is the discipline piece. I realized quickly I could not raise my son the way that I was raised. It was not going to happen. And Jeron, you talked about it earlier, man. Like when you got a line, you got your ass kicked. And so learning that early, that when I went to 100, my son would go to 120. And I had to adjust my temperament and be more patient and flexible with him, and understanding that his mind processes things very differently. And so that was a huge adjustment for me. I had to really, and it is still an adjustment. Like I am not perfect at it, and I'm still learning. The second piece to that is that I learned that my wife is not my adversary. She is my partner, and we are in this together. I know Travis talked about it a little bit, but you do a lot of this. You do a lot of this when you're in a relationship and you trying to not just raising a child on the spectrum, just raising children, period. Like I got 4 kids, so you know how that goes. It's when you just raising kids, period. You want to do this, you want to do that, and it ain't clicking. So I had to learn that we are in this together, and that my wife has a relationship with my son, and I have a relationship with him, and that relationship doesn't have to look the same. It can be different. But at the end of the day, we both love him and we want what's best for him. So I would say those are the 2 things that I learned about myself. So, fellas, man, this has been a great episode. I just want to thank Jeron and Darius for coming, man. I really appreciate this, man. This has been awesome. Listen, we got to give it up for you one time. We got to give it up. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it from the bottom of our heart. What's the name of the podcast you guys have?
You can find us at Beyond the Science Podcast for wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Instagram, whatever. We're there.
Absolutely. And please make sure you go to the BMBA website. Is bmbanetwork.org. That's bmbanetwork.org. Please check out all the great things that they are doing over there. Fellas, thank you again. So much appreciated. This is AutisHim, Black Fathers and Autism, and we out.
I love you.